Welcome everyone. I'm Laura Rogers and this is SharePoint Power Hour. This is a show that I do on Wednesdays at 11 Central. It's just for fun. It's just demoing different things in SharePoint and Office 365 that we can do as I am not a programmer, so I demo a lot of out-of-the-box functionality in SharePoint. And I've been doing this for 2 or 3 years. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and we also have a live chat that we do during the show, which is we're using Slack. So the channel's iwmentor.slack.com, and there is a link in the description of this YouTube video to click to join in. So we have a lively discussion. The whole point, the fun part of doing this live is so that we can have chat, have discussion, get feedback. You guys can ask me questions as I go. You guys can have conversations with each other. So that makes it a lot of fun. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. And so today's topic is the modern lists and libraries. Now, modern lists and libraries, this concept was announced last May in the big Future of SharePoint event that I went to in San Francisco. And it's been rolled out since then. It's probably in all of your tenants. And even since they first rolled out the new modern look, they've actually added a few new kind of different functionalities and tweaks here and there, and every now and then new things will pop up and appear as new things that you can click on, things that you can do in the modern lists and libraries. So I figured I'd do just a good old demo and go through this, and I kind of made some notes of some things that I wanted to point out. It's been a lot of fun. I have my own training company. It's called iwmentor. So you see the logo everywhere. It's been interesting, building training materials because there's a lot of redoing screenshots and keeping up to date on what's the latest and what's been updated in there. So it makes it probably pretty challenging for other training companies as well. So that keeps it fun. But and I do have, out of my training classes, the beginner class is going to be the one that's going to impact the most, because that's where you go into just the interface and how to use your SharePoint site and how to get around and get to your lists and libraries and views and things like that. So that's the one that I really got to keep on my toes with. But I'll go ahead and share my screen, and I've got my good old demo site here, as you can see. And I've got, I'll go ahead. I've got a few lists. This is just an example site with customers and projects. So I've got a few examples of lists and libraries that we can go through to show you a lot of these new functionalities that I'm going to highlight. So first of all, I've got a few lists in here. I've got customers, and you might recognize this from some Power Apps demos that I've done where I have my customers and associated projects. Well, this time I'm not going into Power Apps. I'm just showing you this modern look. So first of all, I'll just kind of go over the order of things that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to go over the toolbar in here, the info panel, and some of these things I'm not sure if there's technical jargon that I'm not aware of, technical names for things like the info panel. And then I'm going to go over the item toolbar, columns, dragging widths of columns, adding columns, different ways to do views, and how to do grouping and even dragging to grouping, and the new look of the modern forms and the way that those work. So yes, Carolyn, I changed the shape of my circle around my face on the screen sharing. It's a lot of fun. All right, so I have got the first thing that we're going to talk about is the toolbar, and the toolbar is just this top portion up here that's I've got circled, you can see up here. And the toolbar, just like the ribbon, is going to change a little bit whether you're looking at the whole list of items or if you're looking at a particular item that you've selected. So you'll notice a lot of things in this whole toolbar are going to be different depending on if you have one item, a checkbox next to it to select it, or if you have, if you're just simply, you've arrived at that list and you're looking at the whole list. So the first thing, of course, is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to be the new button, and the new button is going to take you to fill out a new form, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Quick Edit is the same thing. It used to be called the datasheet view. They changed the name to Quick Edit. So it's the same concept that we've always had of being able to work on these items just in a spreadsheet format and being able to drag values down and sort and filter just like you've always been able to. So it's that concept of the datasheet view of having a big list of things and wanting to be able to get around in there and quickly make some edits without having to open each individual item. All right, so the next thing, of course, is export to Excel. That's always been in SharePoint. It just takes whatever view you're looking at and whatever columns you have and whatever filter you've put on there and takes that whole list and exports it out to an Excel spreadsheet, not new. And then you have Flow, which I did a whole separate Power Hour about. That is the new sort of workflow concept of being able to create automations between things. And then we have, depending on your resolution of your screen, you have the ability to, you might have some different things showing over here when you click the little ellipsis. So when I click the ellipsis, it says Power Apps, and it's just got basically my alert stuff. So it's just got whether I want to go create an app and just good old SharePoint alerts that have always been there. Alert me and then manage my alerts. And of course, when you create a SharePoint alert, when you get the alerts, you'll also have a link to get back and be able to manage your alerts later there as well. All right, moving on along in the toolbar, we also have your views are over here now. They kind of keep moving where the views are, right? But this little drop down, all items, those are your views. So that's where you're going to see your views. You're going to see now also your any Power Apps that you have. Any Power Apps that you've created are also going to be in that drop down box. So these are two different Power Apps that I've created that are associated with, that I created from in here, from this particular projects list. Now, I wanted to point out that if you have other Power Apps that you didn't necessarily create from here that may incorporate this SharePoint list in them, they're not necessarily going to show in here. This list of views is not necessarily going to know all the places that this particular list is being consumed, other Power Apps is being consumed. And these are just Power Apps that you created from this toolbar, from this specific list. Got it? All right. Ariel says, I like the portability of the modern lists and libraries. However, I feel it's always a guessing game whether I'm going to get a modern view or not. Are there any settings in the site collection or site level that affect if modern lists and libraries are available? Not sure if that makes sense, but if I have site publishing turned on a team site, for example, will my modern views go away? That's a great question, Ariel. The first thing that I usually look at is going to be the list settings. And you're not, now every type of list and library doesn't have the capability of doing the modern views yet. So you have like just some of those out of the box templates like contacts lists and task list and issues lists, and certain types of libraries don't have the modern view available. But you can go into your list settings, which is now of course up here. It's instead of being in the ribbon. You can go to your list settings and go to advanced settings right here and scroll all the way to the bottom. And so this is actually a setting that comes down from Office 365 admin, from like central admin area. And then, but for a particular list or library, you can force it to go to the classic experience or the new experience. For example, one of the things that I'm going to talk about that you don't have in the new views for some reason is the totals. If you, in your list setting, in your view settings, you've selected that you want to see totals, the modern view just ignores that. You don't have any totals. So if I want to see the totals in my view, I have to flip over to the classic experience. So you can go to any particular list or library and flip it over this way. force it to go to the new, experience, or classic. Now, if you see your list or library is on classic and it says default experience set by my administrator, that probably means that from the admin level, that's where it's set to classic. There isn't a site or site collection level setting, unfortunately. It's in Office 365. So, and I'll add that to my list of things to maybe go over at the end, just to kind of point out where that is. Adding that to my list. Okay. Carolyn says, what is a view versus a Power App in the view drop-down box? That's a great question, Carolyn. All right. You're not going to be able, the only way you can tell, Carolyn, is going to be from just the way that there's this delineation, this line between them. So we'll go through as I do this demo, and we'll create some other views, and we'll just kind of see how that looks. But if I go and click on this just projects, it's going to be very clear that that's a Power App. So if I wanted to, I can click to make this view private. So that would make it so that people who aren't me, the Power App creator person, are not going to see this view in the drop-down box. So you might want to do that if you don't want to confuse them by having Power Apps listed in the view. So I could click to make this view private. That doesn't remove the Power App, it just removes the view. So I can just remove this view if I want to. So I'll go to Project Apps, and I can just say remove this view. See, it says the Power App will not be deleted. All right. So Lee says, is there a reason totals are not displayed? No idea. That would be a Microsoft thing. Maybe it's more complicated to do that. I'm not sure. All right. So now, now that we've talked a little bit about what you're going to see in the toolbar just for the whole list, we're going to talk about these other two things in a little bit, but I really just wanted to point out these top items here. Now we're going to talk about the info panel. So the info panel, the info button is going to be way over here at the top right, and you're going to have that in lists and libraries. So the info button, when you first click it, if you don't have anything selected, you're going to get, it's actually selected the first item for me. So you're getting all the details about that item. This is kind of like going to the form for that item, but it gives you a lot of extra information. So watch, if I unclick it, now it's just showing me some recent activity on that whole list or library. So it's even showing me, look at this, it's kind of like a version history right there in this panel. Notice so far I haven't had to go anywhere. This is huge. I like this about the new modern look. Think about people that are, again, that are new to SharePoint and Office 365 and how easy is this is going to be, because think of all those situations where you might have gone, like, you kind of start clicking on settings and going all these different screens, and you kind of end up going down like a rabbit hole, and you can't really figure out, you know, how to get back to where you came from. So notice that they're keeping everything on the same screen. Awesome. All right. So the information panel, when I have a specific item selected, this is where I can go edit that item. So I'll go to one where I can, let me unselect that one. I need to go edit this one because it's missing some information. And I'll go ahead and say project end. It doesn't have a value. Look at that. So I still haven't left the screen. I haven't had to go edit the item. I haven't opened up the form on a different screen. I'm just going to go select project end. And as soon as I click away out of that box, it saves the item. You guys like that? That's huge. I love that. It makes it so easy. All right. And it can also, instead of just kind of seeing this quick, you know, list of all these properties, if I click edit all, that's actually going to take me to the form itself. So I click edit all, that's what opens, that's another way that you can open that form, that whole form for that item in edit mode. So I'll click cancel, and I'll go back and click another one and go again to the information panel. Okay. So here again, this is where you can go fill out all the fields. I have a lookup field here, so as soon as I click on it, I can actually go pick a different value if I want to. I can add attachments right here. Just quickly add attachment and then save it, and you're just staying on the same screen. Also, you have, not only do you have all these fields that you can edit right here in this panel, but you have all this recent activity. So this is just like version history. So it's not showing you the entire version history necessarily, but it's just showing me like kind of a recent update. But look, you can find earlier changes in version history. So if I click that, that's actually going to take me to the actual version history screen. So let me go edit one more thing real quick here. I'll put a project end on this one. Saved it. And then notice, see, and then it shows me that recent edit I made is now showing right here in recent activity. And then more things that I can see in this panel all about this item. Sharing. So this is, remember a bunch of those fake users I had in my tenant, I have in there, and some friends and people that I've shared this with. So I can quickly send an email to everyone that I've shared this item with, and that's going to open up Outlook. And then I can just quickly see a list of who can see this specific item, and I can stop sharing it if I want to. That's permissions though. So that, to me, that's kind of messy. I'm not sure if I would want to delve into that, where again, I don't like to mess with individual item permissions or individual document permissions in here. I like to kind of try and keep it at the library or list level. But that is where you could go mess with your permissions. If I go to advanced, that's actually going to take me to the permissions screen, and this is very familiar if you've been using SharePoint for a few years. That's taking me in a new window to the whole separate permission screen just for that item. All right, and then also I have a little bit more information about it. I have what type, this is the content type, and I have when it was last modified a few seconds ago, and the path. That's interesting. So it's projects, and then AdventureWorks project is the path to get to this. So I can imagine that, so when we go look at documents, if you have documents in a library, this is where you're going to be able to see a little bit more information about how you got there, like the sort of the breadcrumb trail of how to get to that item. It's all very useful information over here in the info panel. I'm glad you guys like that and agree that it's pretty intuitive. All right, so when I have an item selected, not only do I have this info panel with a lot of information about it, I also have some different things here that I can do in the toolbar. So I've got, let me kind of move over this way with my picture here. So I have some different things I can do in the toolbar having to do with that item. I can go edit that specific item, which is going to open up the edit form. I can share it, which is permissions. I can get a link, which they've kind of modified the way this works a little bit kind of over the last few months, and it's still a little confusing. I still would like to be able to just have the URL to the item and not have to do this whole special thing. So look at that. See, this is exactly what I was just saying that I wanted, and it looks like they have provided that now. So last time I looked at the whole sharing screen, it gave you this sort of different special URL that it created on the fly. But look at that. It's just the link to the item. It's the display form, ID equals 10, copy it. Super simple. So I just want to take this, get a link, and maybe email it to somebody or use it in a, in a special like hyperlink somewhere, but it's awesome. So I can just get a quick link of that. And then of course I can delete it. And then what else can I do with this item? I can go do alerts, just good old-fashioned SharePoint alerts. Okay, so what happens when I click share? And this, you've seen the screen before. This screen has been around a while, so this is where you're just doing permissions. Basically, if you click share, you're splitting off that item to have separate permissions, which makes me cringe. Okay, so that's going to be what you're going to see for list items when it comes to this toolbar. Let's flip over to a library and then go look at the same concept in a library. So I don't have that many files in here, but let me see if I have many more in this other one. Yeah, got a few more. So now I've got a little bit, not that different, but I've got a couple more things in here. I can create a new file. If I've got multiple content types in here, It's going to show in the drop down, but also, have you guys seen this? This is huge. This is a new, you can create a new link. So remember back, in the old days when you wanted to just have the ability to create a link to another document and have that in your library instead of having to have copies of documents everywhere, you just wanted to link to it. You had to go into advanced settings, enable the use of content types, and you had to go add a content type. You had to add the link to a document is an out-of-the-box content type that you had to know to go add that to your library. And then once you add it to the library, then it would show in the drop-down box. You had to have a PhD in SharePoint to do that. But now I can just either create a new file or create a new link. Look at that. That's awesome. Have you guys seen this? This is huge. It's got recent files that I've worked on. Now that's really interesting because some of these are not even in this tenant. These are just files that I've worked on just in general, like for different projects that I'm on. Some of these are in my OneDrive, some of these are on my desktop, but it's got recent files that I've worked on that I can quickly create a link to. So that's really nice. Yeah, so M. Probst says, I've had issues with a new experience with getting links to images from a library. Yes. So with images and documents, I think the link to is going to be a little different, which is kind of why I wanted to point that out. So let's go back to this toolbar concept here. And I'm trying to be fancy with my little circle here. Okay, there we go. I can upload files, which this is the exact same as it's always looked. I'll just do an IW Mentor Training Certificate for my class that I teach. Hint, hint. And then that's interesting, Ariel. So Ariel says it doesn't show link as one of the content types in the settings. So apparently when you this is just an out-of-the-box thing that you're going to get now in all of your libraries. Instead, I mean, you don't, so it's not going to be there, so you can't take it away. It's just, that's going to be in the drop-down box. Interesting, huh? I also want to go create a new library and see, because this one's got a special content type that I've put in it. So I want to go create a new library in a second and see what else it has. So upload is just the normal upload, but have you guys noticed that you can select multiple items now? Look at that. You just hold down your Control or Shift. This is something that has not existed for years. People have kind of asked about it, but now you can click that single upload button. You can select multiple items, and of course you can still just drag the files into the library like you've been able to do for about 3 years now. Awesome, right? Okay, so I just uploaded a couple of files at the same time. And then quick edit, same concept that you can do in a list is this is where you can go quickly. I can go pick a project for these files that I just recently added, like that. And then that's a lookup field that I just used, so it actually pulled over additional fields from that other project list when I did that. All right, so let's see, let me unselect this. Another thing that you can do this with a library but not a list. You can sync it, which is going to be your OneDrive for Business. This went away for a little while, didn't it? The sync button went away, and then it just went to only your OneDrive for Business, your actual OneDrive library would sync for a short amount of time, like a few months ago, but then they added it back for SharePoint libraries. So now, you don't have to just sync your OneDrive for Business down to your hard drive. You can go pick any SharePoint library and sync it down to your own hard drive. Then of course you've got your alerts. Now let's go look at selecting one item. I can open it. I can quickly decide what do I want to open it in, Word Online, or open it in the Word program on my computer. Let me move this little thing out of the way. And then I can share it, get a link. Let's see what the get a link looks like, because I think it's going to be a little bit different. So yeah, so with a list item, it just gives you the link to the item. Pretty simple, right? Well, with the get a link, it actually gives you all these options. Restricted link, only specific people can open this link. That's going to be a big long cryptic thing. View link. I have to have they have to have an account in my tenant. And then so they also have to have that for the create link. So that, I don't know, it's still all pretty awkward. What if I just want the URL to the thing? Like, for example, when you're creating a promoted links list and you need to put images in there because you want your promoted links to reference images you have in an image library. Well, you need to be able to go to the library and get the links to the images. Like, go pick an image and get the actual, just what the reference to it is, just something.png, and you need to put that in your promoted links list. So that makes it a little tricky. So that's kind of annoying, but anyway, so that's how you can share it, get a link, download. You can download to your hard drive. You can download multiple items. Have you guys seen this? So when I click a few different items and I click download, it opens a new window in my browser. That was awkward. It creates a zip file. So I can select multiple files in the library, and it creates, and click download, and it creates a zip file for me, and it will put it down to my hard drive. That's pretty cool, right? That's fairly new. So also you can delete it, of course, and look at all these additional things you can do. Now, I did have a separate Power Hour a few months ago. It's probably last summer when the modern look first came out, and I did go over a lot of these different options that you see here, but I'll go ahead and just kind of give you guys a refresher. I'll put my little circle over here. Having fun. All right. Oh, it's still not long enough. Let me see. There we go. Pin to the top. That pins this file to the top, and you can see it at the very, it just kind of puts it at the top of the document library, so it's highlighted. So you can pin it up there. That's what it does, and then I can unpin it to remove it. I can move it and copy it. This is awesome. This is also fairly new. Where do I want to move it to? It's going to say, basically, now you're going to get different functionality with moving and copying. Now, moving is going to be really useful for moving things between folders in the same library. I don't have any folders. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But copying, copy to, look at that. It lets me drill down and go to all these other sites that I use and groups that I have, and just move it to some completely different library in a completely different site. So I think that functionality is probably coming soon to the copy, but the move is awesome. Now think about something where you have it in one file, and you have it in one library, and that's just maybe in your personal OneDrive, and then you want to move it to a team site where then you started it off, but then you want to collaborate on that file with other people. So that's where the move to is going to be really useful there. So the copy to, the move to is going to be able to do that soon probably. So, but that's what you can do with the copy that you can't do with the move. Ariel says there's a question from the YouTube live chat. He's noticed that it's not possible to shorten the width of the name column. Can you? Yeah, I was gonna get into that. I'll get into that in a minute. Thanks Ariel for nice moderating. Thanks for keeping an eye on the on the chat window in YouTube for me. Appreciate that. All right. So we also, when you select an individual item, you can rename it. You can version history, alert me, manage my alerts, kind of basic stuff. When you select multiple items, you can do a few less things: download, delete, move to, copy to. I like that you can move and copy. I noticed that you can't check multiple files out. If you have a single file, you can check it out. You used to be able to check out multiple files, so that's something maybe they need to add back in there, but you can't check out. Hopefully, I don't think that there's a reason necessarily to use the checkout like there used to be with SharePoint. If you didn't check out a file, then other people could accidentally be editing the file at the same time and accidentally overwrite what you were doing, and it got to be a big mess. But ever since 2010, when the whole live co-authoring thing first came out, ever since live co-authoring, I don't really see the need as much for people to check things out and check them in. So hopefully the check-in, check-out is not a big deal. And maybe hopefully that's just getting phased out and you're not going to need it as much. Do you guys feel the same way about that whole checkout concept? Just let me know. Let's see. Lee says, can that type of copy move be included in a flow thing? What I want to do is based on a single status column, then based on location category, the file would move to a folder. Yes, you can do that with the content organizer. But you can the content organizer will automatically do that, and that's been around for years. That already does that, and it even has a little checkbox that says create new folders when you get over a certain number of items. We did a whole other power hour about content organizer. But yeah, I think you can use Flow to do that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure off the top of my head what actions you'd use in Flow. And we'll do some more power hours on Flow as well. But yeah. Okay, so that was we talked about a list. We talked about the toolbar. We talked about getting around in a list in a library, and getting around in the toolbar with an item selected or not, and with a file selected or not in the library. And also in libraries you have the information panel as well, but in a library you have a little extra thing that you have. Let's see if I have one that's got maybe something prettier in it. See, look at that. That is a training certificate for my classes that I teach. If you take my classes, you'll get this lovely certificate. So you actually get a preview in here in the panel of the document. So you don't even have to commit to having to open up Word or open up the document. You can just glance at it. Properties cannot be displayed. File not found. That's interesting. I'm not sure what that's about. But then you've got your version history, sharing information, same type of stuff that we had for the other one. All right. Now let's go back to my projects list, and we're going to, Lee says, my thought with Flow was to enrich more end users. I'm not sure. Are you saying you want end users to use Flow? Or are you saying that you want to dumb it down so they don't have to know what's going on? Gee, Julian, I'm not sure what you're referring to about pictures I posted in history. What? Not sure what you're talking about. Let's see. Ariel, do you have any insight as to why the quick launch doesn't seem to hold the audience when in modern view? That's probably something that they just haven't gotten to yet, or didn't realize that is important. But that is important. But yeah, the audience is only in publishing sites, and publishing sites have, in your navigation, you have the ability to set audiences on different hyperlinks. So yeah, that's one of those things that it's probably just low on the priority list because maybe not as many people use audiences. But yeah, I think audiences are awesome. I'm not sure. Yeah, Sandy, I'm glad you like the info button. I think it's great, and I think it's great that it makes it so you don't have to leave where you are and just be able to work in this screen and not have to go anywhere. So another thing that I was going to mention is the ability to drag column widths. So one of you was asking about the width of the name column. Now it's just in a weird spot. See, it's kind of over here, but usually, now I'll go over to the title field in my list, but it looks like for the name column you get the little double arrow, but yeah, you're right, it doesn't let you drag it. So let's go over to projects and see what that looks like. See, yep. My problem with the column width dragging is that it doesn't stay there. So like next time I go to my list, it's going to be back where it was, and it doesn't let you just kind of say, hey, I want you to always be this width. It's really just for kind of when you're working in there, and you can temporarily set these to certain widths so you can drag them around. So this is one of those things that people have asked for a lot in the past, so it's there now, but it's just not the most awesome because it doesn't stay there. Lee says, I want end users to not have to use SharePoint Designer 2013. So if a simple workflow based on a column to move a document, I'd like to keep it in Flow and teach end users how to do it. Yes, I agree. And Flow just came out with a huge new announcement last week that Flow is now going to have the ability to have team flows and be able to collaborate on flows. And this is one of the big things that people have been waiting for in Flow, because up till now it's just been always my flows, and every flow is just for the individual creating it. But now we're going to be able to collaborate on them. So I just wanted to point that out. We can talk about that in another Power Hour though. But yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, I see what you're talking about with the picture. That's funny. Okay, so column widths, you can drag those. You can add columns. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and go to this. I'll go create. I'm trying to think of the cleanest way to do that. Let me just show you. I'll scroll over first. So I've got this list of projects. I'm going to try and it let me narrow that column down a minute ago. It's not letting me do it now. That's pretty odd. I'm refreshing it. Let's see, where'd it go? There it goes. See, now it works. Yes, voice your desire in Microsoft's user voice site. So it's sharepoint.uservoice.com. I recommend you go in there. Maybe somebody can type that in the chat window. I think that's the right URL. And that's where you can give your feedback about things like this, about maybe needing to have totals in your modern views, and needing to have it recognize audiences in your navigation, and things like that that you're requesting, that you're asking me, you know, if I know why. I don't know why, but maybe it's potentially, you know, these are humans. They're Microsoft, they're humans, so maybe it's something they didn't notice or take into consideration yet, and it just needs to be pointed out. All right, so next we're going to get into this whole new column thing. So I want to show you, I'm going to go into a library where I don't have as many columns showing. So see how this is kind of nice and, you know, a lot simpler. Let me try and do that width. See, oh, let me do the width of that one anyway. Okay, so go back to my little circle here. And the circle is going to be around this little plus right here. This is awesome. Have you guys noticed this and tried it out? This is going to be something that, again, you don't have to know a lot about views and complications and complicated training, which, I mean, as a training provider, it's, you know, I'm kind of, I'm going to go out of business because they're going to make it so easy that no one is ever going to need SharePoint training, just because it's just, everything's going to be so obvious and so just easy to do. And you won't have to figure it out. You won't have to go to a class. It'll just be right in front of your face. That would be great, right? Errol says this is very nice for team sites with little to no customization. Definitely helps to standardize your environment. Yes, exactly. And so we have a lot of these team sites everywhere that are just ad hoc collaboration, and that's what these are going to be the best for. This isn't going to be necessarily the best interface for your more custom business solution sites, like if you have a site that's got all these special web parts and workflows and things all around, you know, HR onboarding or different things like that. This is going to be really useful for team sites that pop up, Office 365 groups that pop up, and just people needing to just go and start collaborating and not have to have a big complicated process around it. Just, we got all these millions of people potentially using Office 365 and that are new to Office 365. So just let them use it and not make it so that they just stop because they can't figure it out. So we have this awesome little plus button. Now this lets me not only create new columns, but I can choose this show hide columns. Let me scroll down a little bit. Show hide columns right here. And show hide columns is you're changing your view without having to go into view settings. Oh, yay. You guys like that? So, yeah. So I can go add which columns I want to see here. And like modified by. I don't have, this is just more standard out of the box list that don't have a whole bunch of columns created in here. But look, and I can move them up and down. So I can move that up. I can move it down below the other one. So I'm just moving them up and down right here in this little panel. And what if I want to see the dock icon? Let's see what that looks like. Maybe I want that to be, that's kind of awkward to have to like chase it up to go move it to the top. But let's see what that looks like when I don't think that that's going to be the most useful. Let's see what it looks like. So click apply. Yeah, and that's just got that. Yeah, that's not very useful at all. So I can go back to show hide columns and take that back off. Click apply. So simple. Yes, Carolyn, exactly. Rather than creating a view and having to go back and fix it 100 times. Awesome. Okay, another thing that you can do here is you can add fields. So what kind of field might I want to add having to do with the customers themselves? Let's see, I've got when it was modified, who modified it, what do I want to know about the customer? Maybe I want to have a person. I'll just say like project manager that's in charge of like a contact in my company that's in charge of interfacing with that customer. I don't know. So I'm creating a person column right here. Okay, so I'll just say liaison. Did I spell that right? Okay, create. All right, so now I've got a new people field, and now I can, if I want to go into quick edit, of course, and put, ooh, look at that. I didn't save my view. Okay, so that's something to point out. So I created a column, I didn't save my view, and I went to quick edit, and it wasn't showing there. Isn't that weird? So let me go, you'll notice that as soon as you start changing your views in here, you'll see a little asterisk here, and that asterisk is letting you know that the view hasn't been saved yet. So I can go click Save View, like that. And this is also a way to create a new view. So you don't just have to save the view you're on. I can do a new view. I can just call it with liaison, like that, and whether to make it a public view. And if you uncheck it, it'll be a private view. So now I just created a new view, but there is no Create View button. You guys notice that? So there, I'm gonna go circle that. Have you guys noticed that in here? There is no create new view. It's so basically that's how you create a view, is by editing the view, and then by just clicking Save View and then giving it a different name. Now you can still go into list settings like you've always been able to and add a new view there. So that hasn't gone anywhere, but if you notice that you want to create a new view and there is no option here, that's the way you do it. You just edit what you're looking at, and then when you go to click Save View, that's how you do a new one. All right, so that's a little bit about views. So now I created this one, I called it with liaison. And now I'm going to go, I saved it, so I shouldn't have to worry about it disappearing. And then I can go maybe go into quick edit, and it should be there. Yeah, there we go. So I'll just say, that's a little awkward. There we go. There's Corey. And let's see, Billy Bob. Some of my fake people in here. And I can just copy that down. Copy. Just so I can have, maybe put these values all the way down the list. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Good old quick edit. Okay. And done. Okay, so now again, look how wide this column got. It's kind of annoying. See, it doesn't let me, yeah. It's a little, still a little awkward with the column width thing. So it put my internal liaison column way over here. So I can scroll over and go to this little plus and show and hide some columns. Maybe if I want to narrow it down a little bit and not, I hate it when it gets so wide, right? So I just removed a couple, and then I just click apply. So this is, now you're not going to see in this drop down, you're not going to see every different, it keeps going away, sorry. You're not going to see every different type of field that you can create. But if you want to create something that you don't see here, like maybe a manage metadata field or something, you can just click more, and when you click more, it will go to just the standard create a new column screen that we've always used. Probes says, what are the restrictions on a private view? There aren't any restrictions, just no one else can see them besides you. That's all. All right, so I edited my view, so I need to go save it. So I'll just click save. And I could set this one as the default if I wanted to, again, without having to go anywhere. So that was my overview of this cool little plus button that makes things a lot easier as far as just making your view look the way you want it. You also have always, you've always been able to just sort things, but they've also modified the way the sorting and filtering looks. Have you noticed this? Instead of just clicking on the name and seeing those those old school options you used to be able to see, you have A to Z like this, and you have Z to A, and you also have the filter by, which lets you pick a specific one, so the filtering just looks a little bit different. And then I can go to column settings. So this is another way. So if you don't see that little plus all the way on the right side of the screen, when I do the drop down on a column, look at that. I can rename a column from right here instead of going into the list settings. I can move it to the right. I can show and hide them, which is the same thing that we saw in the pop-up box just now. And I can add a new column. Again, the same kind of interface, but they put it so it's more obvious. Yay. All right. So also you have, now this is, let me see if it exists over here. See, I didn't have group by customer name in here. Maybe it's because they're all different customer names, but I have group by, I have filter by. This is a choice field. This has active and inactive as the two options. So it gives me this cute little checkbox where I can filter it by one of those, or I can just sort it, ascending or descending. And then I can do group by. Look how cool. So I just did group by customer status, and it put it in groupings, just like I like to do, just in like we've always been able to do in views, right? Have you guys played around with this new grouping stuff? Now let's see if I can get it to do this. If I take AdventureWorks and I want to make them inactive, I drag AdventureWorks into inactive. Have you guys seen this? I think I demoed it before, when the modern look first came out, but I still think it's really, really cool. So I went ahead and I grouped them, and so with them being grouped, I can just drag something from one group to the other, and that actually changes the metadata. So I didn't have to go open each item and change it to be like some other status. I just dragged it into that status. Huge. So this makes it, again, really easy for end users. Like now if I go here and look at my little information panel, I can see customer status inactive. I can see Laura Rogers made edits less than a minute ago, so that is a change that I made to that item, but I didn't have to open the item or do anything. Yes, and you don't have to go to another area, and you don't have to get lost, and it's awesome. Let me go save my view again. Just save the same name, and I can get rid of my info panel with this little button over here. I cannot believe I'm filling up a whole hour just with modern view stuff. Okay, so I can see this cute little icon lets me know that it's grouped by customer status. You can do this in both lists and libraries. And then let's see, was there something else? I don't think there was anything else in those drop down. Let me go to a different type of different list that's got maybe some different types of columns that I can see, because different columns, different types of columns are going to give you some different options when it comes to what you can do with the grouping and filtering. Refresh that. See if it lets me drag that. No, it decided not to. Oh, so if it's a date field, it knows to say older to newer, newer to older. And then it's for the filter by, it's just got specific dates. And then the grouping, it's just group by project start, where they're all different start dates. So I think that when it gives you the group by, from what I can tell, if it sees more than one item that has the same value like this one, that's when it's going to give you the group by. Like notice for the customer names, they were all different. So it didn't have a group by with, group by customer name, because every single customer name was different. I think maybe that's the logic they're using behind this. So All right, so I can save my view and I can call it grouped. Okay, so now I've got a group view, and notice that, see this one called just projects, that's the one that's a Power App. So that's, see, it's in a different little section here. Also, when I do, let's go do a personal view. So let me go, I'll just do a different sort order, and it gives me the little asterisk. And I'm going to save this. Oh, it doesn't, let me see. Yeah, there we go. Make it a personal view, and personal views historically have showed in a different little section too, but notice that the personal view is now showed just along with all the other ones, and that the Power App one is going to be the one that's in a different little section there. All right. Errol says, it seems you lose the quick edit when grouped. Yes, and you've always, even in the classic mode, you've always lost the quick edit when grouped. That's just globally, that's just how it works. Okay, so I'm going to show you this other cool new option here. Have you guys seen the brand new filter panel? Can you get do like a golf clap in the chat window here? Like, let's see. Giphy filter. All right, so the filter panel. This is brand new. This has just come out in the last couple of months, and this lets you filter by just, instead of having to do it individually on each column heading. Look how cool. Active and prepaid. There we go. And by project start. I don't have any. Isn't that awesome? Okay, so the filter, just depending on what type of field it is, so these are choice fields, it's going to give you different options here. So I can clear my whole filter. You guys like the filter panel? So let's go over to my my statement of work library over here and go look at the filter panel here. So it's going to give me, ooh, it's got file type, so I can quickly narrow it down to Word documents. I can narrow it down to more recent files, and then I can quickly pick which project and project start that I want to. So project is, that's coming across from, that's a drop-down box. So I can narrow it down by those that have a specific project start. That is a field that comes across with this lookup field of project, which is very cool. And I see, when I click see all, since I've got a lot of projects, that's where I can see them all. Look, it's got Contoso project listed in there twice and AdventureWorks twice, so that doesn't seem oh yeah, oh, when you check one, it checks both of them. Awesome. Okay, so now I've got my Contoso project and I've got Word documents, and you know, you can see, you can kind of play around with that. Very, very cool. So after I've filtered it, I could save my view if I wanted to. Another thing that you have with libraries that you don't have with list is that little tiles view, which is a little, I've seen this kind of be a little buggy because I've seen it not, like, you can't turn it off. But I've got tiles view. And see, I had one the other day where a customer said, how do I get it off of tiles view? And there was no option to go off of tiles view. It was just tiles was the only thing here. So that was a little awkward. But that's where you can flip back and forth between list and tiles. So it's another one of the new modern looks. You guys let me know what you think about this. I personally have never had a use for seeing a list of documents as a bunch of squares or tiles. I usually am skimming through a list and either looking for the name of something or skimming through like a value like the most recently modified, or quickly like sorting by modified or who modified it. I never have a use for like having to scan across the page and look at tiles. Now I guess if you have a bunch of presentations and they're very pretty and you want to be able to display them really nice, then that's a use for tiles to be able to visually find what thing you need. But I usually just like seeing the list of them with the names of them like that. Ariel says, can you modify which columns you're able to filter in the filter panel? It looks like it's just the columns that are in the view. So let's go try another one that's got, so I've got customers here and I have customer status. all this one has is customer status as the filter. But let's go to another view here. And so, yeah, so it's going to be what's in the view, Ariel. So now I can narrow it down like this by just whichever ones are, I have the internal liaison, and I didn't have that in the other view, so it didn't show here. So that's how, that's what it gives you to be able to narrow it down. Notice that if you edit a view and then switch to another view, it's not going to warn you and say that you changed your view. Do you want to save it? That would actually be pretty annoying, because if I'm flipping around between views and quickly sorting things and I just want to go find something and work on it, and then I just go quickly to another view, I don't necessarily want to be annoyed to annoy me with the fact that I filtered a column a different way and then didn't save it, right? So, oh, Lee says visual tiles helps people who are looking at lots of documents, and he says he has libraries with lots of documents. But what are you looking for visually when you're looking at them? Are you looking for, like, are there certain graphics in the documents, or is there a certain way visually that the files look that you're trying to catch your eye? Or I don't know, usually it's metadata or the name of the file that I'm looking for when I'm scanning a big list of files visually. I don't understand the card view thing. So Stuart says he has users that like the card view. Okay, yeah, it's very pretty. I mean, it's a nice, pretty way of being able to see things like that. All right, so went over the filter panel, went over grouping, showed you dragging to group. Let's go look at the new forms. This is my customer list. It's very simple. And when I go fill out a new customer, watch this. So what I really like about the new forms is that, kind of like in Excel, when you're typing in cells down the spreadsheet, it recognizes a value that you've typed before in that same cell. Well, that's what this is doing here. So this is not just the browser remembering some value that I've typed in a field previously in the browser. This is actually SharePoint seeing other values that I have in that same column and prompting me, and like it's the type ahead thing where it's prompting me as to what I might want to type in there. So that's huge. I think that's really, really useful for being able to quickly fill out forms and make it just low maintenance, right? So I have my liaison here, and I can add attachments. I can save it. So it's the forms themselves are pretty super simple. I can also right click on a form anywhere on the row and go edit it. That's something that you can do now in the classic view too. You can just right click on a row, and you don't have to do the drop down box to be able to get to where you're editing the item, which is huge. Stuart says you can group the cards, then similar to what you did before, then move a card from one group to the other, and it changes the metadata. Ooh, that sounds fancy. Let's go try that, Stuart. All right, so I have this grouped, let's see, let me do a grouped view in my group by project here, and then I'll switch it to tiles, and then I'm going to go ahead and save this. Oops. By project, and then yeah, so it's saving it. So now I've got them grouped by project, and then they're showing as tiles. So yeah, so then he's saying I can just drag one back and forth from one project to another like that. So did I do that right? Let me see. Oh yeah, I got to drag it and let go of it on the grouping name. There you go. So that worked. Yeah. So that's the same as editing a file and editing the metadata, just dragging it to another group in there. Huge. I also have, if I'm looking at tiles, since I don't have necessarily the columns to filter and sort them, they're just showing as tiles. Look at this, I've got an arrange button over here. So that actually gives me my columns back. So then I can go ahead and filter and sort them. So that's a nice little bonus there. Let's see, as far as the forms again, back to the forms, same concept applies to items in a library as well. I can go quickly edit the properties of something like this, or A much quicker way is going to be to go to the information panel, that little panel on the right. A, W, sub W. And then let me go back here. And it's 12 o'clock already. Wow. So I went over everything that I was going to show you. I'll go ahead and go over to admin real quick and show you. Not all of you are necessarily going to be admins of your Office 365 environments, but if you want to know where those settings are to be able to say whether you get the modern experience or not. Now, last time I looked, this is where it was. Let's see. So I've got, it's going to make me authenticate again. Stuart says, can you show the groups horizontally? It looks like no. That didn't appear to be an option anywhere, at least not that I could tell. Okay, so under settings in the SharePoint Admin Center, I have, here we go, that's the OneDrive, so classic or new for your OneDrive. And then I have, I need to change my sync client to use the new client. Interesting. Anyway, SharePoint Lists and Libraries Experience. So this is where you can set it to classic or new right here from Central Admin, but it's not a site or site collection setting that I've ever been able to tell or heard about. It's just in Office 365. All right, I'll go ahead and save that. All righty. Thanks, everybody. Any last questions? All right, let me stop sharing my screen here. Thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. I need to get back into the swing of, doing my newsletter and my power hours, and I've just, I got kind of slammed the past couple months in billable work. So thanks everybody for coming. I will figure out between now and next week what the next topic will be. I'm going to be speaking at, drumroll, SharePoint Saturday Hawaii in Honolulu on March 31st, which is going to be awesome. And it's on a Friday, so you guys come on out to Honolulu and see me. And then right after that, I'm going to be at SB TechCon in Austin, which is April 2nd through 5th, I think. So I'm bouncing from Honolulu to Austin. So, and thanks everybody for coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Over and out. Yeah, thanks T. Robinson, Annie Honeycutt, Stuart, M. Probst, Mark, Ariel. Yeah, thanks. And I've met so many of you in person now. It's so much fun that I can picture what you look like with just from seeing your names in there. It's very cool.